Sean Diddy Marshall had built an empire on rhythm, rhyme, and raw ambition. For decades, the name Diddy was synonymous with success. His beats dominated the airwaves, his rappers ruled the charts, and his record label, Thunderstrike Records, was the beating heart of the industry. But beneath the surface of his success was a world as dark and twisted as the hardest bars spit on his tracks. In the early days, Diddy had been just another hungry kid from the streets, obsessed with the idea of making it big in music. His beats were fire, and he knew how to hustle. But as talented as he was, it wasn't enough to rise to the top. Not in an industry where money and connections mattered more than talent. So, Diddy made a decision. He'd use every tool in his arsenal to get ahead, and if that meant breaking a few rules, or people along the way, so be it. It started with blackmail, small at first. A young rapper named Biggie had just signed with Thunderstrike. His first single was blowing up, and the kid was about to be the next big thing. But Diddy saw something in him he didn't like. Biggie had ambition, too much ambition. He was already talking about leaving the label, going independent, taking his master recordings with him. Diddy couldn't allow that. One night after a party, Diddy cornered Biggie in a dimly lit studio booth. He had Biggie's contracts in one hand, a flash drive in the other. "You walk out on me," he said, his voice cold and menacing, "and I'll make sure no one ever hears your voice again. I'll bury you, and I'll own everything you've ever touched." Biggie didn't believe him at first, but then the threats became real. Suddenly, whispers were circulating about Biggie's past. A few days later, incriminating photos mysteriously surfaced online. Biggie's reputation was destroyed, and Thunderstrike dropped him. Diddy made an example out of him, and the message was clear. Cross Diddy, and your career is over. But the real power play came later, as Diddy's influence grew. His mansion became notorious in the industry, famous not only for its state-of-the-art recording studios, but for the wild parties he hosted. Every weekend, celebrities, artists, and executives flocked to Diddy's lavish events. Champagne flowed like water, and the drugs were plentiful. But it was the after-parties that were truly legendary. In the back rooms, behind closed doors, Diddy threw private sex parties, where no request was too extreme and no line too far to cross. What no one knew, though, was that Diddy had outfitted his entire mansion with hidden cameras. Every bedroom, every lounge, every corner of his estate was rigged to record. And Diddy kept it all. Hours of footage featuring some of the biggest names in the business doing things that would ruin them if they ever got out. With this leverage, Diddy controlled everything. An artist complaining about contract terms, he'd simply remind them of the tapes. An executive trying to poach one of his acts, one phone call with a reminder of their indiscretions was all it took to shut them down. It was a well-oiled machine, until it wasn't. The cracks started to show when a rising star named Kaylin signed with Thunderstrike. A young rapper with fire in her voice and a fierce independence, Kaylin was quickly becoming the face of the label. But she wasn't like the others. She didn't play by Diddy's rules. When he tried to bring her into his fold, inviting her to one of his infamous after-parties, she declined. Diddy didn't like that, so he tried a different tactic, using the same playbook that had worked for decades. He offered her a lucrative contract, but when she started asking questions, things turned dark. Threats followed. "I can make you a star," he whispered to her one night after a recording session, "or I can make you disappear like all the rest." But Kaylin wasn't intimidated. She had heard the rumors, and unlike the others, she had come prepared. One night, she secretly recorded their conversation, capturing Diddy's threats in crystal-clear audio. And that was just the beginning. Kaylin dug deeper, quietly gathering evidence. She befriended other artists, producers, even house staff who had been to Diddy's parties. They spoke in hushed tones about the cameras, the recordings, the things they'd been forced to do. With this information, Kaylin put together a plan. The night it all came crashing down, Diddy was throwing one of his biggest parties yet. His mansion was packed with industry heavyweights, music blaring, lights flashing. In the midst of the chaos, Kaylin slipped away, making her way to the control room where Diddy kept all his footage. She hacked into the system, downloading years of secret recordings and evidence of his misdeeds. Then she released everything. The leak hit the media like a bomb. Videos, audio files, contracts, it was all there. Artists who had been silent for years came forward, now armed with proof of Diddy's manipulation and abuse. The lawsuits piled up, and within weeks, Thunderstrike Records was in ruins. His so-called friends in high places couldn't protect him this time. As for Diddy, he went into hiding, his empire reduced to rubble. The man who once controlled the entire industry with an iron fist had finally been taken down by the one thing he had used to control others, his own recordings. The beat that had driven Diddy's rise to power was now the soundtrack to his fall, a slow, haunting rhythm that echoed with betrayal and ruin.